Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in to the Fantasy Roundup. I'm your host, Spencer the Guru Urquhart here. Alongside me, Gabe Henderson. Ready for another lit show, Gabe?
Absolutely. I'm wearing black today for the 76ers funeral.
Ah, yes. Must bury the 76ers, who ended up firing Doc Rivers. I had my Bayou Bets rant yesterday about that, but they must have listened to me because they fired him. And yeah, it makes sense. I mean, he was terrible. So Poppy was Wazam, man. And then low battery, I believe that is. But yeah, appreciate everyone for tuning in. We got a stacked show today. Rookie mini camp went down over the weekend. That's some things to take away from that. We've got NBA Conference Finals, Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Nuggets, Lakers, got some DFS plays for y'all, as well as some fantasy baseball, waiver wire pickups. And yes, who dat? Got our Saints fans in the building as always. Jerry says what's up. Because yeah, we've OG Sean the Dawn, who dat for life, baby. Yep. Which will actually, speaking of that, let's get right into our headlines here, because a couple of our headlines have to do with the black and gold. And our first one here is that the Saints signed veteran wide receiver James Washington. Deal went down yesterday, 1-year contract. Guy like Washington probably won't see the field all that much, but should be a good depth piece, assuming he's healthy. A guy that can stretch the field. Good depth for Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, who also specialize in stretching the field. But speaking of guys that the Saints are going to need to just move the chains as opposed to stretching the field, Kendre Miller and Michael Thomas, both not 100%. Kendre Miller coming off, he's a rookie from TCU, the running back coming off a knee injury he suffered down the stretch in college in the CFP semifinals. Should be good for training camp, but as of now, still not 100%. Same goes with Michael Thomas, who recently got hardware removed from his foot. Not sure exactly what that means, but we just got to hope that MT is finally healthy, because the team needs him. They need him in the slot because, like I said, a lot of the Saints receivers are more outside vertical threats as opposed to those chain movers. Like, if Michael Thomas is healthy, he's one of the best chain movers in the business, a guy you can rely on just on those short slant routes to pick up first downs. So hopefully those guys can get healthy. Joe Burrow and the Bengals closing in on an extension, it looks like. They're just trying to work things out there, get all the just logistics worked out after Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson agreed to new contracts. Burrow likely going to reset the market. Him and Justin Herbert, the next quarterbacks in line to get paid. It'll be interesting to see how much Burrow is able to get. To me, he deserves to reset the market, but he might do like Tom Brady and take a more team-friendly deal. Going to be interesting to see the terms there once they agree. And then got to plug my Cardinals, man. Nolan Arenado, fantasy baseball's top performer over the past week, has hit a home run now in 4 straight games. 4 straight. Can't get him out right now. And for a while there, he was slumping, as was the whole Cardinals team. But now the Cards have won 4 in a row. Their best hitter is hitting, and yeah, should be. Hopefully, this is a sign of a turnaround. But yeah, pitching though, the pitching is still a question mark in St. Louis. But yeah, let's move on to DFS NBA here. We've got some values for y'all. I see you've got D'Angelo Russell, Gabe, there at 7,200.
Yeah, it's going to be a little pricey, but you gotta roll with the punches when it comes to the conference finals. I mean, when D'Angelo's on it, he's a walking bucket. So he's capable of scoring 20 plus a night. There's under 7.5 thousand as a cost for him. So there's some value, especially if he can score at the clip that he is capable of. And, he's going to have to come up big for the Lakers. They're going to need their offensive guys to really step up in this series against what is the top-rated offense and the most efficient offense in the postseason in the Nuggets.
Right. Yeah, make sure if y'all have any thoughts, questions, comments on this Game 1 action, even betting questions, we got y'all at a fantasy for sure. If y'all have DFS questions about who y'all should, because it's nice the captain showdown mode where it's just the one game, so you got to have a captain and then have 5 utility plays. So my captain play for the night would probably have to be Joker, being at home. I'd probably just have to pay up to get Joker. But my value play for the night is Aaron Gordon, because we know that the Lakers are going to be all over Joker. Anthony Davis is going to have to be on Joker the whole time, to where Aaron Gordon, I think, is going to get free and put up some points. He's a guy that's capable of scoring, getting rebounds. Doesn't really get talked about much, but he was a really good player with the Magic and still is with the Nuggets. He's not a superstar, but he's a very good third or fourth piece there. Him and Michael Porter do good things there for Denver. Don't get talked about much, though, because of Joker and Jamal Murray, where at 6,800, I think Aaron Gordon's a great utility option, especially if you decide to build around Joker. And it's kind of a hedge in case Joker doesn't do quite as well as normal because of the Lakers swarming him. Well, Aaron Gordon should help pick up the slack.
Yeah, I also think you were talking about your captain play. I think LeBron James is definitely in play here, just because I know he's not as involved in the offense. He's not putting up the numbers that we're used to with LeBron, but this is a big game player. LeBron has always shown up in game ones in these series, and this is the first time in these playoffs where we're really seeing the Lakers come up against a team that is definitively better than them. And when that stuff happens, you usually see LeBron step up and at least try and will his team to a victory in game one, as we saw in the finals a few years ago when they got swept by the Golden State Warriors. So,
yeah, for sure. Which, yeah, he'll definitely need a lot from LeBron. AD, that's why I like the Nuggets tonight from a betting perspective, because one, they're at home, they've been unstoppable at home, and I just don't trust Anthony Davis. I mean, I trust LeBron. He'll do his thing, not denying that, but Anthony Davis, can we trust him against Nikola Jokic? I surely don't. He's come up small time and time again outside of the 2020 year, which was they had the bubble and kind of had it to where they were well rested, but having to go there to Denver, again, a physical environment, tough crowd. I know they beat Golden State, but Golden State, it's just a different, outside of Draymond Green, who does Golden State have that's physical? When you go talk about Denver, you've got Joker, Gordon, Porter. Joker's basically he's like two players in one. So I think Anthony Davis is going to have his hands full. But we'll see. That's going down tonight. Should be a lot of fun there. Lakers at Nuggets. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, which is the rookie wide receiver and tight end talk, breaking down where these rookies, receivers, and tight ends landed and project their 2023 fantasy football value. We're just talking. We're just trying to figure this stuff out. We're not staking our flags on anything just yet. That's going to be my rant for today. For those that want to stick around for that, I'm going to have to rant about all these people planting their flags in May about fantasy football when we don't even draft until August, most of us. Some early drafters do July, but unless you're doing best ball drafts already, which I know some people just have that itch that they've got to scratch it. I got to draft right now. So, all right, do your best ball, whatever. But for these season-long leagues, you got to let this stuff play out. But I'll save that for the rant. Let's talk Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's the favorite among wide receivers to win Offensive Rookie of the Year at 12-1. He's in a good situation there in Seattle. But for fantasy, long term, I say good situation long term, because that's a team that's a very stable offense, even after losing franchise quarterback Russell Wilson. Didn't miss a beat. Went to a guy that has been a career backup in Geno Smith. So that tells me that's pretty much a system that's going to be around for a while. Even when Pete Carroll retires, I feel like they've got a pretty stable ship over there to where that's an offense that should be relevant for years to come. And JSN should fit in well there. They've got DK Metcalf, but Tyler Lockett's getting older, so he won't be there much longer. It'll eventually be the JSN DK Metcalf show. So really like him for Dynasty. But for redraft, I'm kind of pumping the brakes because I don't think Tyler Lockett's just going to go away. A lot of people are going to want to dismiss Tyler Lockett, but I don't know about you, Gabe, but to me, Tyler Lockett's one of the most slept-on wideouts in fantasy football.
I completely agree. And, that's why I agree with your point on this in total. Jackson Smith and Jigba is definitely the most attractive option in dynasty leagues. But in redrafts, he's the number 3 option in Seattle right now. So while he's very talented, and that's also not touching on the fact that he hasn't played in a year, essentially. So I mean,
Right.
it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get acclimated to the NFL game and just start seeing the targets that he really deserves, and that translate to how talented he actually is. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think he has the best odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, among receivers, as you mentioned, but I just don't see it. I think he's more valuable long term than he is in the short term. He landed in a great situation. My concern is just he won't be the number one option or even close to the number one option, especially with how they run the ball.
Right. Yeah, they still like to run over there. Drafted Zach Charbonnet. We talked about him last week. Him and Ken Walker, they're going to run a good amount. So it's a good offense, but there's only, it's kind of any offense, even if it's a good offense, there's only so many touches to go around. So yeah, JSN probably not a good bet for immediate value. He's a big name though, so he'll probably get drafted fairly high. So I probably won't be drafting him. And same goes for Quentin Johnston there at the Chargers. I'm not really liking QJ there for fantasy as a rookie. He's behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. It's kind of similar to the Seattle situation. He should be able to be the number 3 right out the gate, but you got to be fantasy relevant. You need to be in the top 2, unless you're like that year Brady had Evans, Godwin, and AB. But for one, most offenses aren't going to throw like crazy like that. That was Bruce Arians, the most air raid crazy coach ever in the NFL. I feel like they set the record for pass attempts. And also, it's just, there's just not enough to go around unless you're throwing it that much. And so to me, the Chargers, while they are one of the more pass happy teams, I don't see Quentin Johnston getting involved enough as a rookie to be relevant. And I don't even really like him that much for the long term because him and Mike Williams' profile is similar. Maybe they see Mike Williams as toward the end of the road. He's not that old, though. I think this could light a fire under Mike Williams to where they say, oh, they're trying to draft my replacement. Okay, I'm going to go and ball out, to where I'm not sure. And he just at TCU kind of struggled with drops and just didn't really seem to hit his ceiling. He's got the physical traits. He's got the size and the speed, but he struggled with drops, struggled with finding the end zone. So I'm not really sold on him. But, if anyone in the chat disagrees or wants to chime in, definitely shoot y'all's comments how y'all feel about these rookie wideouts. But to me, Quentin Johnston is one that even in Dynasty, Gabe, I'm a little nervous about.
Quentin Johnston's a tough one. And, I think, like you mentioned, his situation is similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I think he's in a better situation fantasy-wise because, while this might light a fire under Mike Williams, that's not going to keep Mike Williams on the field. That's not going to keep Keenan Allen healthy. So while he is a number 3 option right now, he's sitting behind 2 guys who it seems like every year miss half a season with injuries. So Quentin Johnston could very quickly become a 1-2 option in a pass-heavy offense with a quarterback who can sling the ball. And you mentioned his size and speed is incredible. That isn't going to translate as well to the NFL as it did in college. He's not going to have as many opportunities open down the field, but I think this is a good situation for Quentin Johnston. I wasn't as high on him coming out, but once I saw that he landed with the Chargers, I think it's a really good situation for him. Still, I wouldn't reach on him like a lot of people might do in these redraft leagues, but
Right.
I mean, if he's there late rounds, he's worth a flyer in my opinion.
Yeah, I see your point there because that is a good system. Justin Herbert, they are going to sling it a lot. They are one of the more pass happy offenses. They throw more than Seattle because their running back Austin Eckler, he's also a good receiver. So they love to sling it. And Mike Williams been injury prone throughout his career. I guess another thing I'm just a little nervous about is that the Chargers, man, they just don't seem to draft well. Seems like every year they take a receiver fairly high. It's like you think other than Keenan Allen, they haven't really panned out. Mike Williams took him years to develop. Joshua Palmer, we thought could be relevant next year. He never did anything, even when Keenan Allen was hurt. Not that he was a first rounder, but he was a fairly high draft selection where it's more of a thing that it's not a knock on Herbert. Like, I know he's going to get his and Johnston will probably have his moments. I just don't know if I wish the Chargers would have taken, honestly, I wish they'd have taken Jordan Addison instead, who we're about to get to. I guess we'll just segue to that here. Because, Jordan Addison, 16-1 there to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. To me, he's going to fit in like a glove in Minnesota. So, I mean, this is actually, I'm glad he landed there instead of the Chargers, because Minnesota had a clear need for a number 2 wide receiver. So, to me, for redraft leagues, Jordan Addison's probably the best option among these rookie wide receivers. It's a great situation because we know Minnesota is going to throw it a lot. Kevin O'Connell, their new head coach, he's not conservative like Mike Zimmer. He's going to air it out, and their defense should be a little better, but it's still not going to be that great, I wouldn't think. So there'll be opportunities there, and Addison proved in college that he could do it in 2 different systems. Started off at Pittsburgh and transferred to USC, did well in both roles. So I think he'll fit in well with the Vikings. And I know TJ Hawkinson's there, but he's a tight end. His upside's somewhat capped. And you've got Justin Jefferson, who's going to see all the attention from number 1 cornerback. So Addison won't have to worry about top coverage his rookie year. So to me, I mean, I like him for Dynasty too, but in a way I like him even better for redraft because, like, he's someone that he probably won't get reached on because it's going to be like, well, Justin Jefferson's there. I mean, what more can he do? But look at these offenses nowadays. Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And more and more of these modern offenses can support 2 stud receivers. So to me, Jordan Addison is someone I'll probably be targeting.
Yeah, I think out of all the receivers we're going to discuss today, Jordan Addison has the biggest question mark around him in year 1. And I don't think it's anything to do with his talent or him in general. I think it's more the emergence of KJ Osborne towards the end of last year. I really like KJ Osborne. So I guess my biggest question for the Minnesota Vikings is, who's your number 2? Is it going to be KJ Osborne stepping into that role, or is it going to be Jordan Addison, who you used a high draft pick on? So I think both of them have insane potential. As you mentioned, they won't be guarded by the number 1 corner, that obviously all the attention is going to go to Jefferson. So, I mean, if Addison's the number 2, I think you're 100% right. In redraft leagues, he's going to be a doll in the late rounds. And I really think that people will love to get him because of the value they're getting. But if KJ Osborne is seeing more of the ball as he was at the end of last year, I just don't know how much Jordan Addison's going to produce, because obviously Minnesota's having some trouble getting rid of Dalvin Cook, so they're still going to have him as a huge part of their offense. So once again, I mean, it's just like Jackson Smith and Jigba, both very talented receivers. I love them both for dynasty leagues, but for redraft, there's questions.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about KJ Osborne. I'm guessing you're somewhat of a KJ Osborne truther there, because I had him last year thinking he might emerge past Adam Thielen, but the fact was he never really did. He had some weeks where he did good, but that was when Thielen was hurt. Like, when they were both healthy, he was still the number 3, and then when Hawkinson emerged, like, he was just kind of lost in the shuffle again. So I'm not that high on KJ Osborne. That's why I like Addison here, because I think he'll be able to slide right into that number 2 role. Obviously has to earn his stripes and beat him out, but let's see, I got a comment here. I'm not sure what that they're talking about, but won't worry about that. But yeah, Addison, though, I definitely think is in a good spot. But obviously have to monitor camp. You know, it's just our early thoughts. I'm sure these will change between now and the draft season. But yeah, should be good. And as far as Dalvin Cook, before we move on to Zay Flowers, I do think there's a chance they get rid of Dalvin Cook. I think they might just outright release him, because it just seems like that relationship's kind of soured. And Alexander Madison, they paid him pretty good amount of money to where I think he could start and do just fine. So Dalvin Cook might end up on the market, in which case someone's going to pick him up, and that's going to throw a whole monkey wrench in the running backs, which we'll talk about more in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and as you prefaced earlier in the show, it's still really early. So, you know, we could hop off the air in 30 minutes. I could look down at my phone and Dalvin Cook could be released, like you mentioned. I think, yeah, but right now, though, I think if Jordan Addison is the number 3, then there are question marks there. But if he's the number 2, I think I agree with you. He might be the best of these 4 for redraft leagues this year.
For sure. And here's Zay Flowers is another one who I think could be really good. And because in that offense, I think he'll use him like a chess piece. He'll be used all over the field, which could lead to some sporadic production there, because I don't think Baltimore is going to all of a sudden go from one of the worst passing offenses to one of the best. But I think they'll become at least mid-pack. You know, they paid Lamar Jackson, that are definitely going to try to throw more. And I'm thinking that Flowers will be a big part of that, being that he was a first-round pick. So while he'll be used somewhat in a gadget role, I think he'll be able to stretch the field enough, get some yards after the catch, to where he's in a good spot, because I don't trust Odell Beckham and I don't trust Rashad Bateman. Beckham hadn't played in over a year. Bateman only played like 4 games last year or something. He's just, these guys, you can't depend on them. So if Zay Flowers can stay healthy, he could be the number 2 behind Mark Andrews, because I don't really trust anything else they have. And if Lamar's throwing it more, Flowers is going to be a big part of that. So I like him as a late round flyer in redraft leagues. I think he's probably not as safe as Addison, because I don't think there's not really like a surefire role that he's going to slide into. But I like it, though, that he's going to be involved a lot, whether or not he's starting or not. He might not start all the year as a starter, but I think he'll eventually work his way there. And he's someone that might start off a little slow trying to figure out his role, but once he figures it out, I think he could be a second half darling.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. I mean, there's a reason that Zay Flowers shot up draft boards. This dude is insanely talented, and I think he landed in a great spot in Baltimore. As you mentioned, they needed receivers, and they went out and got Odell Beckham. Okay. I mean, last time we saw Odell Beckham, he was really good, but he's a little unreliable, especially coming off an injury. So, I mean, Zay Flowers has all the intangibles to become that multi-tool guy, as you mentioned. And I think that's one of the reasons, that and the fact that he's being thrown into the fire from day one and he needs to produce. I think those are reasons to be excited about him.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, should be. I think he's just going to be a fun player to watch, you know? So that's like, if I'm sometimes I might take him around the 2 earlier in fantasy. You know what? He'll be fun to watch. Like, they might not be the smartest pick. Like, in the 9th round, he might be, it might be smarter to take like a slot receiver that's going to rack up PPR points. But if you've already got a strong receiving core, it's like, why not? Take a chance. So but we'll get more into that as it goes along, draft strategies and such, how to balance out a team. You don't want too much risk, but you also don't want too much blah. You want a good balance of that. You want some safe PPR guys, and you also want some upside guys, because if you just got all safe PPR, if you go Tyler Boyd, well, Julian Edelman's retired. Let's just say he still played. Or Jacoby Myers. Here we go. That's like the new Edelman. Tyler Boyd, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm like, man, I like this. I got them all at value, but you're not going to know which one to play. Like, I feel like if you take Tyler Boyd, Juju, and a rookie, it'll be like, okay, well, I'll probably rotate between Boyd and Juju, play the matchup with them, and then I've got this rookie who I might play over them some weeks, and then if he busts, well, then I won't worry about him, and I'll probably flex a running back or something. But yeah, that's something we'll get into more. We're going to try to bring back Mock Draft Monday next week and try to get into mock drafting and see what's up with that. Break that down on the show here on Tuesday. But let's get into tight ends here. Dalton Kincaid, the Bills' first-round pick. They were talking about using him more as a slot receiver as opposed to a traditional tight end, playing more that 2 tight end, 12 personnel, since they have a solid traditional tight end there. And Dawson Knox, who probably going to get a lot of goal line looks, I would think, from Josh Allen, but he didn't get as many last year, where maybe Kincaid will be that guy. This will be a situation to monitor. In redraft, to me, he's worth a dart throw as a second tight end. Same goes with Sam Laporta. Obviously, don't reach on these rookie tight ends, but speaking of rookie minicamp, Sam Laporta lit up rookie minicamp. I mean, not that that really means a whole lot, but it shows that he's on the right path, and he was beating his former teammate, Jack Campbell, the linebacker the Lions picked in the first round. Both went to Iowa. So, and we all know how Iowa tight ends, I mean, they've got a good reputation. George Kittle, TJ Hawkins, and Noah Fant. So I like what I'm seeing from Sam Laporta. He's in a good system, because Detroit, outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit, the Lions don't really have a whole lot of reliable receivers. Jamison Williams suspended. Josh Reynolds and Marvin Jones getting old, where I think Laporta could have a pretty nice impact as a rookie.
Definitely, especially because he's a number one option, which, you can't necessarily say the same about Kincaid, although you mentioned rumors that he might play in the slot. I just worry with Kincaid about his red zone targets, as you also alluded to. But I think
Yeah.
Laporta is going to be one of those guys who steps in from day one, and he's going to be an important part of that offense. He's going to be, when Amon-Ra is not open, which I think we all know now that Amon-Ra is a legitimate threat. He's here to stay. We're not the only ones. NFL defenses are going to pick up on that as well. I think Laporta is going to get a lot of looks in the middle of the field. He just short to intermediate routes. And I think for PPR, like you mentioned, there's a lot of upside there as a tight end too.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these tight ends pan out. Michael Mayer, another one to watch there from the Raiders, who's I think he'll probably be kind of quiet as a rookie, but definitely like him for dynasty purposes. Same goes with Luke Musgrave there for Green Bay. They need some people to step up to help out Jordan Love. And speaking of Green Bay, got my dynasty league stash here for y'all, and that's Jaden Reed of the Packers, because I don't think the Packers do a whole lot this season, but I think in 2024 on, I like Jaden Reed because they're going to need somebody else besides Christian Watson, and I don't think Romeo Doubs is that great. I mean, he's okay. He's the incumbent, so he'll probably see more snaps this season, but I think Reed will eventually leapfrog him as the number 2, and he'll get into work with Jordan Love. Jordan Love under contract there through, I believe, 24, so should get at least 2 years to prove what he's got, and I think Reed will be a big part of that. So if you have him this year, don't count on him, put him on your taxi squad, but I think in the second half he should pick up his play, and in 24 I think could be a legitimate flex option.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's not a lot of options in Green Bay, just like with my guy, with Kayshon Boutte. There's not a lot of options in New England, and these are two talented players who have high upside given their situations. I think, especially with Kayshon Boutte in his first year, especially with Mac Jones at quarterback, they're both taxi squad guys, but they both have the high upside, and they can be legitimate number 2s, I think, in the NFL.
Yeah, Kayshon, and I mean, he was a 6th-round pick there. Be interesting to see if he can even make the roster. I would think he will, considering the Patriots have receiver depth problems. But the thing that kind of scares me with this is can he learn to do the Belichick way? I mean, if he was struggling at LSU with Brian Kelly, like I don't know if he's going to be able to handle Bill Belichick. I mean, Bill Belichick's a whole nother level of discipline. Like if Kayshon can do that, I think he'll do really well. I think he is a good stash because he's someone, I think he's going to be all or nothing. I think he either gets cut or he makes the roster and makes an impact. Like, because he's definitely got the talent. If he buys in to what Bill's selling, I think he could do okay. But the problem is, I don't know if he's going to buy it. I mean, if he wasn't buying into Brian Kelly, what makes you think he's going to buy into Bill Belichick? I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe the NFL have motivation with the incentive, signing bonuses and all that. He'll have a little more financially to play for at LSU. He already had his NIL deal, so he didn't really have a lot to gain financially. But with the NFL, you've got to earn your stripes. You've got to show what you got. So I think he's worth a spot. But I feel like in these startup rookie drafts, like people were they noticed that, where I was hoping to get him super late, but he got picked and all. And I was like, damn, I was hoping maybe get him off the waiver wire. Like, no one's going to know about him being that I was like, I know him since he went to LSU and I covered him in high school, but he's enough of a talent to where people know his name. People know what he's capable of. So if he's on your waivers, get him now, because if he makes waves in camp, he's definitely going to get scooped up. So get him now, put him on your taxi, and just hope for the best. I mean, that's all you can do with these kind of guys. And to me, it's worth taking a chance on someone with upside.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw talent from Kayshon Boutte early in his college career. This dude was, I mean, going into the year, people had him as wide receiver 1 or 2, and a bad senior season. I don't think he necessarily struggled because he didn't buy into what Brian Kelly was selling. I think it was more he didn't have the chemistry that guys like Malik Neighbors did with Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, we'll see. I think there's a reason that Bill Belichick went down to LSU Pro Day And he obviously was impressed with what he saw in Keishon Butte, despite taking him in the 6th round, because that's what Belichick does. He takes chances on these guys. You know, an island of misfit toys in New England. He's made it work for these type of receivers forever. So if he can make the roster, I think he's worth a dynasty stash. Taxi squad first year, because I don't think New England's going to do much through the air with a mediocre at best receiving core and Mac Jones under center. But I think if Keishon Butte can continue to develop and improve and make the New England Patriots roster, there's something there.
Right. And for those that are new to Dynasty Fantasy Football, Taxi Squad is a squad of rookies that you draft and you can stash them on what they call a taxi squad, so they don't take up an active roster spot. And then in most leagues, some of them you can carry them over into their 2nd year, but mostly you're forced to either call them up to the active roster or release them to waivers. So yeah, for those that want to join Dynasty, it's important to have a good taxi squad, because it's extra depth. You know, it's kind of like, a practice squad in the NFL. You know, it's just extra depth in case you get injuries. You know, if a guy's doing good on your taxi squad, then you could call him up and have him do something. So it's I enjoy Dynasty. For those that haven't, for those watching the show now, y'all are probably either in a Dynasty league or maybe thinking about joining one. So they're a lot of fun. We got one started up with my buddy Justin, who came on the show a few weeks back. And so if enough listeners want to start one up, we can still have time to get a Dynasty startup going. So anyone in the chat that wants to potentially do that, let us know. But in the meantime, let's talk fantasy baseball waiver wire. Got some pickups for y'all. And, this is no bias here, because, I'm a Cardinals fan. I don't like the Cubs, but Christopher Morel for the Cubs has been killing it, and he's a second baseman. Second base is a struggle bus right now. There is hardly any good second baseman. Unless you got Nolan Gorman from my Cardinals, who's been doing really good. You've got your usual suspects like Marcus Semien doing good, but outside of the 5 or 6 proven guys, the rest of the second base sucks. But Christopher Morel, he's hit 4 home runs since he got called up last week. So he's a guy that did pretty well last year when called upon. I thought he'd have made the roster on opening day, but he didn't. And now that he's back in the bigs, he's crushing it. So to me, he's worth a shot there, rostered in only 25% of leagues.
Yeah, you got to ride the wave on these new guys, especially at positions where you don't get as many quality players.
Right. Yeah, so you got a pitcher this week, Dane Dunning, who I saw has been doing pretty well and should be in the rotation for a while now, with Jacob deGrom hurt again.
Wonder who called that one, Spencer.
I know, right? I ranted about that. That was one of my rants about stop drafting Jacob deGrom up high. I hope y'all listened.
Yeah, and Dane Dunning, everyone who's been listening to the show week in, week out knows my favorite type of fantasy player, and it's those pitchers who are eligible for starting pitcher and relief pitcher spots. Dane Dunning is one of those guys. So the dual eligibility, obviously a huge selling point. Only rostered in 13% of leagues. This dude not had a great career so far. Rocky start. He's gone from a 4.46 ERA last year to a 1.72 this year. So obviously there's risk involved, but that's why a guy with a 1.72 is only rostered in 13% of leagues. But as I just said with Christopher Morel and Spencer's pick, ride the wave. He's got a strikeout to walk ratio of almost 3-1, and his role is only going to increase. So this is a guy who he pitches in multiple spots as a reliever and a starter. And I think for that reason, it's definitely worth picking up if you need a pitcher.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a guy that's when he's in the rotation, should be pretty solid. And if he would fall out the rotation, probably wouldn't keep him. But if he does well enough, he might be able to stick around there in that rotation. So yeah, worth a shot for now, and just keep riding the wave. That's the key with this, is about trends. Got to go with the trends. They don't always last. The guy I recommended last week, Bryce Miller, pitched good yet again. So hopefully that's one that'll stick. We try to come up with guys that, if they're trending, cool, but we try to come up with players that aren't just trending, but guys that could hopefully help your team for the long run. So thinking both these guys have that kind of potential with Morel and Dunning. And because the Cardinals, last night had that scored 18 runs, basically just piled it on the Brewers. And my old colleague Kevin Foote said if you score more than 10 runs in a game, then you're bound to lose the next game. I don't really buy that. I think the Cardinals are hot enough right now to where they should be able to keep it going. But you never know with baseball; it's so unpredictable.
No, as an Astros fan, I've believed in that
Anyway,
theory forever. Anytime the Astros
yeah.
score 10 runs, the next day they can't hit to save their lives. But as someone who's got a future on the Cardinals winning the NL Central, I'm rooting for them.
Yeah. I didn't put a future this year. I did last year, but I wasn't as confident. I was scared of the pitching, and so far I'm glad I didn't. But hey, maybe I could now. It's probably more of a value now. Let's say off to such a
I think,
bad start.
yeah, I looked this morning. I think they were in the plus 300 range. Not 100% sure about that. I have to double check. Maybe the guys on the Bayou Bet show can talk about that on Thursday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you could do like a 1/3 point baseball check-in, like for futures and stuff. That'd be a good show. But anyway, time to rant. Gotta let this one out. I'm just so tired of this, because it is now. It's time. I know a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, you're already preparing for fantasy. It's only May. Football, you're nuts. I'm like, well, it's always good to prepare. You just start preparing early, so you're ahead of the curve, ahead of the competition. I'm always an advocate for preparing early, whether it's baseball, football. The one at basketball, I never am able to prepare early because I'm so into it with football. But if you can, yeah, prepare early for it all. But football's the one you got to prepare especially early for, in my opinion, because of all the competition out there. So many other people are preparing early and competing in fantasy football. But you've got to watch. Be wary. Y'all got to stop with this insanity on Twitter. I'm sick and tired of it. Every day I go on Twitter, there's some new hot take, shock jock, whatever you want to call it. Someone saying these like outrageous stuff, and it didn't even take me but 2 seconds to find one today. Khalil Herbert. They're saying Khalil Herbert. I didn't write it down, but basically he's like Marshawn Lynch, Adrian Peterson, and Barry Sanders all in one. I'm like, I can't even say on there, kidding me? I mean, that's just crazy. Like, I mean, you are smoking not good stuff. You're smoking that stuff that's frying your brain. If you think Khalil Herbert is anywhere near Marshawn Lynch, Adrian Peterson, or Barry Sanders, I mean, it's straight up nuts. I mean, I feel like any sane person would know that. So, obviously, if you're just on there scrolling, you make it a good laugh, But for those, I guess I'm saying it's more for people that are new to fantasy football and want to get a head start. Just don't use Twitter as a source. Like, if you have an account on there that you know is good, then you can look at it here and there. But go to watch our shows, go to trusted websites. Like, social media can be dangerous, especially for those just getting into something because of all the misinformation out there. So just stop it, y'all. Stop with these, just stop trying to get attention with these outrageous takes. Just let your takes speak for themselves. They actually did have a good Twitter. A guy on Twitter had a thread going, and he gave a one bullet point about each NFC team and their fantasy potential. I was like, now that I like. Stuff like that's good. But then as soon after I saw that, then the idiot popped up. I'm like, so for every good tweet, I got to go through 5 idiots, it seems like. But that's just the way it is. So just be wary, y'all. Don't get too hyped up in May, because a lot can change between now and your draft.
Yeah, the only time those legendary running backs' names should ever be mentioned in the same breath as Khalil Herbert is Khalil Herbert looked up to those guys when he was younger. I mean, we're talking about a dude who hasn't even beaten out David Montgomery in the past few years. Come on.
Yeah, now it's Deontay Foreman to compete with, and Roschon Johnson, the rookie from Texas. Khalil Herbert, man, we're going to have to do a show on that. Backfields to avoid. Bears backfield is definitely one I want no part of, because you also got Justin Fields getting carries and rushing touchdowns. So yeah, it's just so crazy. But anyway, I see you got one too, Gabe, about what this. Just stop with this trust the process junk.
Yeah, people need to stop using the term trust the process. I mean, it's become a culturally significant term that, come on, guys, let's stop lying to ourselves. This is the 76ers just trying to tell everyone to bear with them while they're bad. I mean, come on. The whole process has been overblown. The term was first mentioned in 2013. Since then, Spencer, they've missed the playoffs 4 times. They've been bounced in the first round once, and they've been bounced in the second round 5 times. That's as far as they've gotten. We are now 10 years into a process, a whole decade, and they haven't even sniffed a conference finals, let alone the finals to begin with. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy to win a title, but I mean, come on. When you look at the teams who have tanked and turned it around recently, I mean, obviously for me, the Houston Astros come to mind. The Astros are a dynasty now in the MLB. So yeah, you can bear with them stinking. But look at the 76ers, Spencer. They've changed their entire front office multiple times. They've changed their coaching staff. They've changed their team. And they're not able to get it done. Only 6 of the 17 players on their roster right now were actually drafted by the team. And only 2 or 3 of them get significant minutes and average over 10 points a game. I mean, this whole process thing is an absolute failure. The only 2 successful draft picks they've had in the last decade are Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. You look at notable busts. I mean, they tanked to get these high draft picks. Who did they take? They took Michael Carter-Williams. They took Markelle Fultz. They took Ben Simmons. They took Jahlil Okafor. These dudes stink. Jahlil Okafor's not even playing basketball anymore professionally. I mean, and then you say, okay, yeah, Gabe, whatever. You know, they didn't draft well. That doesn't mean the process can't be a legitimate thing. It's not. They've added second legitimate stars to help Joel Embiid, like James Harden, Jimmy Butler. They lied to themselves and tried to say that Ben Simmons was a legitimate star for a while. He's not. None of these guys have worked. The 76ers process is a joke. Let's please stop talking about it. Joel Embiid is a fantastic basketball player. He deserved the NBA MVP this year. But his success cannot be tied to the whole process thing, and we need to stop it because it's been 10 years now. They've not even come close to anything. Everything about the franchise has changed. It's not a process anymore, Spencer. They're a regular NBA franchise.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, they didn't really stick with the process. They never gave these draft picks a chance to develop. They were giving up on them too quick, trying to chase a ring. Thinking it was really what the process is Joel Embiid. They basically made it to where they were like, all right, once they saw what Embiid was, they're going to build around Joel Embiid. But then they gave up on all the other young guys as a result. And one of the ones that most of them, like you said, suck now, but the one that's actually panning out now that he's healthy is Markelle Fultz. But what they do with him after a year that he struggled, then they just give up on him, and then they bring in Jimmy Butler, and they don't even stick with him. They let Jimmy Butler leave, and now the Heat are in the Eastern Conference Finals with Jimmy Butler, an alpha scorer. Just imagine if they'd have been smart and kept Jimmy Butler instead of worrying about paying Ben Simmons, and then he gets unhappy and then getting James Harden, and now he's about to leave. It's just such bad decision making from that front office. And I know he said Joel Embiid's not the issue, but I do think he's somewhat part of the problem in that he just doesn't seem to show up when it matters. He's great in the regular season. Postseason, no, he's a different player. And until he can get past that threshold, they're never winning anything. So they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and maybe they actually should trust the process and stick with some people, because the amount of turnover they have outside of Embiid is just crazy.
Trust the turnover, Spencer. I completely agree with that. They've used the process for a whole decade to excuse their failures. It's over now. Done. No more process. No more trusting the process. Nobody trusts the Sixers. Now it's trust the turnover. When James Harden goes back to Houston, they're going to be in shambles once again. Here's my advice to the Sixers. Give Tyrese Maxey, a guy you drafted, the chance to be a premier player. Bring in some solid role players, get some depth, help Embiid and Maxey. Then maybe you'll do something. But for right now, stop trying to get Daryl Morey to replicate what he did in the late 2010s with the Rockets.
Right, yeah. Yeah, hopefully they're not. Oh, I don't care what they do. Hopefully they are stupid. They will bring in Kyrie Irving next. That'll be their next big move. Because I think James Harden, like I don't think there's any way he goes back to the Rockets. That's just suicide.
I think it happens, Spencer.
Why would he do that? That would just mess up their quote unquote process because they've got all those young guys. I mean, if I'm Houston, I wouldn't even want James Harden.
We'll see. He could be the guy to really teach these youngsters. We'll see. I'm not a Rockets fan.
Want to. Yeah, he can go teach the youngsters how to spend money in the strip club. Yeah, he can really teach them.
Yeah, there's going to be some establishments on Westheimer, as a good fellow Michael Schwab pointed out the other day, that are very happy if James Harden returns to Houston. But I don't know. I don't try and pretend to know what the Rockets are doing. It's just been the talk of the last few months, which has essentially been the off season for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, let him go to the Suns. Him and Kevin Durant can reunite, and they can have all kind of toxicity over there. That was the rumor I heard yesterday, but I mean, you never know with this stuff. But anyway, yeah, I'm just glad that, I was like the Pelicans. I was like, I'm glad the Pelicans don't have to put up with this, but they kind of do. You know, Pelicans have their share of problems. There's just so many problems. But that's the thing with basketball. It's like you think everything's so simple. You've got 5 guys, just got to get 5 good players and a decent bench, but having these players mesh and coexist is tough because a lot of it comes down to can they play as a team, and a lot of these guys are super, super talented. Not all question of talent. Like James Harden. I mean, you can't be much more talented than him as a scorer, but with his ego, it's like good luck getting him to perform well with the rest of the team.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's annoying. But anyway, we'll be back next week, y'all. This is going to wrap up this Fantasy Roundup episode. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. If y'all have any last minute thoughts, comments, questions, drop them in. But until then, we'll, I think we're good. All right, yeah, we're going to sign off here. And been Spencer the Guru with Gabe Henderson. Thanks again, everybody. And we'll be back next week talking. We'll probably do rankings next week. We'll probably get into early rankings and probably still have NBA playoffs going on, be around toward the end of the conference finals. So we'll have that to talk about. And then probably more baseball. So yeah, we'll have stuff to discuss. So until then, we'll see y'all later. Thank y'all for watching.